Hi guys, Carl Hinder, Real Barber Shave, 4th video. Now today I'm going to talk to you about equipment. The equipment that we use during our training course and some of the equipment that you're going to need in your salon if you're going to roll this out as a good service. So I want to start with shaving brushes. Now, there's 4 basic brushes on the market. I know there's other combinations, but the 4 basic ones are badger's hair, boar's hair, horse hair and synthetic. Okay, now let's start with the badger's hair brush. There are lots and lots and lots of different versions of badger's hair brushes out there, and the prices also vary quite a lot. Now the price really depicts the quality of the brush, the length of the hair, the quality of the knot, the quality of the handle, the type of hair, where it's come from on the badger and so on. But you can start off at around £10–15 and go up to many hundreds of pounds depending on what you want. Now personally, I like the badger's brush. It holds a lot of water, a lot of moisture, keeps the heat, gives a good lather and is quite soft so we don't have irritation and that sort of thing. There's also a bit of authenticity about the badger's brush. Now, most badger's brushes in the UK emanate from China. So the badgers out there are allowed to be culled. Very often they're eaten as well, but most of the brushes that you're going to get in your salon emanate from China. Okay, even if they end up in Italy or Germany for assembly and processing, these guys are going to be from China. So that's just a bit of information for you. The next brush that I don't use a lot of myself, but I want to talk about it, is the horsehair brush. And again, it comes in different lengths and different processing quality. Now, the horsehair brush is kind of new in a way because it's only just come back on the market in the last few years, certainly commercially, because in about 1924, 1925, First World War, it was banned, if you like, because it was claimed that it caused anthrax. I think it was in the American Army, and so most of Europe and most of America banned it. Now, there's no problems with anthrax anymore, and on the whole, it's a very good brush. Some people think it's a combination, and I wouldn't tend to disagree totally, of something between a boar's hair brush and a badger brush. So for the horsehair brush, they don't need to kill the animal, which is really useful. They can take it from the mane, which is something that your customer might be really interested in. Now, the third brush I want to talk to you about today is the boar's hair brush. Now I know it's got a big line through the middle of it and it looks like a badger's brush, but it isn't. They do that to try and make it look authentic, probably put the price up a little bit, but it's just dyed and that's not real. Now the boar, the pig, if you like, does get killed, but it does get eaten. So there is, something to be known there. But obviously, because it's from the pig, then some religious groups might not appreciate the use of it. From a practical sense, it is very stiff. So if you have a really tough beard, it can be useful. But what you'll also find if you're using it in the house maybe, but also when you're using it on a lot of clients, it does soften up, it does break down, and it actually does get better with age. Again, prices on all of these, anything from £10 and £15, maybe up to a few £100, depending on the handles and what you're going to use. Now, lastly, for now, is the synthetic brush. Okay, they come again in all shapes and sizes and all prices. I've seen them on the market recently for maybe £10. This one here is £50, 50. Now, to me, it would be the best option of them all if you could get them to work. All the ones I've tried so far don't work. If you're a supplier and you think you've got a brush that works for synthetic, then please contact me, send me a couple of free ones, because I would happily convert to just synthetic if I could get the right type. Now, why do I like synthetic? Well, obviously we're not killing any animals, so there's no issues at all with anything like that. But it's not just that. What I like about the synthetic brush is the sterilization process. Now, some of you will know that in the USA, a lot of states have banned brushes, which is a real shame because it does affect the shave. And they banned them because the sterilization, the cross-contamination from one client to another is quite bad. Now, when you sterilize the hair brushes, so the badgers, the horse and the boar, they all have cuticles, okay? So you must have done this as part of your studies. All hair has a cuticle, and when we put it into a hot process, it opens up, and then we rub it over someone's face. All the bacteria manages to get into the cuticle. It's very, very important that you sterilize them properly when you're finished, and that means using boiling water to get that cuticle open, and in the UK using a proper level of barbicide, then using boiling water again and making sure that they're absolutely sterile, ready for your next client. Now, the synthetic brush is just strands of nylon or some plastic process, which means it's got no cuticle at all. So all the bacteria that is created or gathered, if you like, on the client is on the outside of the shaft. The same process is used for sterilization, or disinfection might be more accurate, and that means that you get a better, cleaner process. Now, because I think the brush is so essential to the British shave in particular, not only because we need it to raise the hair off the man's face, that's what we use a circular motion for. It's not just for looks, okay? It's for raising the hair off the client's face so we get a cleaner shave, but there is some sort of authenticity about using a proper shaving brush. I wouldn't like to have a shave without one. I think it kind of, something's missing. So those of you starting out in the industry, you've got to think of yourselves as ambassadors. You're responsible for what goes on in our industry. So make sure that you use a brush, you take care of it, you sterilize it properly, and you look after your client. Okay, so if you have any questions on brushes, don't be afraid to send me some lines. There's a lot more to it than that. If you research Badger's hairbrushes alone, you'll probably find 20 pages on Google. But meanwhile, that should be enough information for you to make a choice on the type of brush that you might want to use in your salon. Now, in a moment, I'm going to move on to razors. Okay then, let's talk about razors. Now, there are literally hundreds of them on the market. I got a selection of razors here. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to pick out a few for you and talk about, when you're starting out, the type of razor that I think you would benefit from. Now, if you've been on the course with me, you're going to know this already, but if you're just scanning the internet, maybe this will help you. Now, first of all, I want to get rid of a myth. And the myth is, in the UK, that you can't use a traditional straight razor. The ones you see on cowboy films and, TV series. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the use of a traditional razor. Now, this is a French razor. It's English steel with a French blade, and you could quite legally use that in your shop. The important part is actually sterilizing it, and that's the difficult part. You're going to need to use an autoclave, and the older razors like this will fall apart after you've done a couple of weeks work. The second reason why you may not want to use it is you've got to become a skilled artist at learning how to sharpen them. And that means you're also going to be spending a couple of weeks sharpening them when you could be spending a couple of weeks with your client. Okay? So I discourage them only on the basis of practicality, but on a legal basis, if you want to use one, you go ahead. Some of the razors that I do use, I don't know if you can see this, but it has a cartridge. Now, I never use this in the salon, and I never use it on my clients. I actually use it on my own face. It's kind of nice blade. It's not really that sharp. It's very light and it's very comfortable. You could use this on a client, but the blades aren't going to be cheap. And I'm going to talk to you about blades quite shortly. When I'm shaving, I like to use one razor in particular, and it's this razor here. Okay. Now, the reason I like to use one of these is because it's quite heavy, quite sturdy for me, but more importantly, it's very well balanced, and it has a surgical blade. It's probably the nearest you're going to get to a properly sharpened traditional razor. But if you're starting out, and this video is really for you guys starting out, just got off the course, or like I said, scanning the internet, I wouldn't be starting with one of these. It's particularly sharp, it's very unforgiving, but once you've mastered it, it's pretty hard to not use, to be honest with you. I have used, and my students have used, one of these quite a lot. Okay, I think it's called a feather nape razor. It's got a small removable blade, as of everything except for the original razor. And it's serrated, which I think really means it doesn't go blunt so quick. I've never had to replace the blade on one of these halfway through a shave. Downsides for me, it's very, very light. It's got a tiny, tiny blade, and I don't think it's anywhere near as sharp as the, I'm not sure if that's the DX or the Artist range razor, the green one, but it's very sharp and it's a surgical blade. But the feather nape is really worth considering when you're starting out, maybe for ladies or gentlemen with small hands as well. It's a lovely little razor, it'll do a great job. Now, when we are training, we train with one razor only, and we train with the Dovo Shavette. Okay, now for years and years and years I've tried all these others. As you can see, I always come back to this for the students, because when you're learning to shave, the most important thing is not the shave. The most important thing when you're learning is your confidence. You want to build up your confidence, you want to build up your skills. And cutting and nicking someone every 5 minutes isn't going to build up your confidence, okay? So I don't believe in razors with guards as such, but this is a fantastic razor. It does come in different weights, so I've got a metal one, and you'll see on some of my posters and that sort of stuff that I have used these myself in the past for paying clients, and if I had to, I'd still use one right now. So the good thing about the Dovo Shavette is it has a removable cartridge which you take out, and you can easily put in a snap blade. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about blades towards the end of this little session. That means that it's going to be very sharp all of the time, it's very balanced, it's very useful. And when I was talking about confidence, right in the corner, don't know if you guys can see that, is the tiniest of guards for the corner. It's the area where when you start off in your first few weeks, you kind of can catch people. Okay? So the Dovo Shavette, I don't work for any of these guys. You'll hear me talking about products all the time. I don't work for anyone in the shaving industry. Okay? So the Shavette is my favorite. Now you will see lots of salons using this type of razor. Okay? Has got the same replaceable blade as the Shavette, and it's got no guard on it at all. These are about a $5, okay, about £5. Now I like to have one in my kit because I like to use it maybe for doing a neck, maybe for cutting out patterns after I've taken them out with the clippers. It's a handy tool. It's £5. I don't like it. I would never ever ever do a shave with it, okay? And if you are doing a shave with it, you're probably not making your life as easy as it could be for you, and maybe the service isn't as good as it could be for the client. Okay, so those are the key ones, right? So we have the surgical blade one, we have the feather nape, which is a serrated blade, and we have the Dovo Shavette. Those are the three that I have in my armory and use all the time. I use a different one on my own face. I use a cartridge single blade, which is fantastic. And like I said, there's lots of others. One more thing I want you to consider though. Now, depending on your supplier, of course, you're going to get your blades at different prices. But you've got to be thinking about what's happening in your salon commercially. When I'm using these types of blades, these are the snap-off ones, in any of the Shavette type razors, I personally always use Wilkinson swords. I never use other brands. Now I'm sure there are one or two other good brands out there, but in all the years that I've tried all the different ones, all the Darbys, all that sort of stuff, I always come back to Wilkinson sword. Okay? Now the good thing about these is that if you buy enough, you buy a couple hundred at a time, they work out at about 5p each. Now 5p each means that you're going to be able to snap one off, and you have to do this for every single shave. Brand new blade every single shave, but also for every single neck. So even if you touch in a couple of sideburns, change that blade every single client. 5p a pop, you're going to be able to afford to do that. On the feather napes, okay, so something like this, you're going to be paying maybe 70 or 80 or 90p a blade. You're not going to be putting one of them on for every neck shave. You have to put one on for every shave. Now, my shaves, I never ever charge less than £25, and anyone who's done the course with me, I'd be embarrassed if you guys are charging less than £25. So 80p or a pound for a blade is nothing to worry about. On this particular razor, okay, the blades can be £1 to £1.50 depending on the quality that you can find. Again, you're not going to put one of them in for every neck that you do. Okay, so choose your razor carefully. Okay, so when you're choosing a razor for you in your salon, when you're starting off, I really recommend you have something like the Dovo Shavette with a tiny guard on the corner, and you combine it with Wilkinson sword blades. If you want to try others, you can try them, but I always come back to these. Now, this razor is around the £30 to £35 mark, so it's not too expensive to get started. If you're feeling a bit more adventurous, you want to move on a bit, then the feather nape razor is well worth investigating, particularly if you've got small hands or you're light yourself, you're petite. The blades are good, they're serrated. This razor is around the £50 to £55 mark. And then as you get a bit more advanced, something like the Artist or DS range is absolutely fantastic. But then you're talking somewhere between £100 and £200 depending on the style and colour and all that sort of thing. Okay, so that's razors that you need to use in your salon. Okay, we've talked about brushes and we've talked about razors. Now we need to talk about products. Now there's literally hundreds, possibly thousands of varieties of shaving products on the market. Now I don't work for any of these companies. These are just products that I think are right for my training, but I also think they're right for you to get up and running in your salon. They're also the right product for your clients to buy and go home so they can continue to shave themselves to a really good standard. Okay, so when I start a shave, and if you look at the 2 videos ahead, you'll see the shaving day. You'll see that I actually start the shave with a pre-softener. I always soften the beard before I do anything at all. Now, I usually use the Menu range, not always, but usually, and they don't have a pre-softener in their range. I know they don't think they need one, okay, so we add to the service by introducing another product. Now I usually use the Pro Razzo softener. There's no point me taking the lid off for you to smell, but it's so strong, I'm surprised you can't smell it over the video. It's probably one of the most traditional and strongest products that we use. And the Pro Razzo range itself isn't a bad middle of the road product to be using. But for softening in particular, we use the Pro Razzo. And that means, if you look in the demo video, that we rub it in using circular motions, and it's one of the very first things that we do in the service. Well then, of course, we've got to get on with the shaving. We need a shaving cream. Now, the reason that I like Menu is because you get a lot of product in one bottle. So 165 shaves out of one bottle, and you can apply this directly to the brush, so you don't need a bowl. Although in training and always in the salon, we put it into the bowl first and we get a lather. Fantastic product. It's a really modern smell as well. So if you've got someone who wants sandalwood or something, then maybe you want to switch over to maybe Taylor's shaving cream. But if you want something more modern and that really works, I'd have a look at the Menu shaving cream. So we apply this a couple of times because after we've taken the towel off from the softening, we apply the shaving cream, another hot towel, and then the shaving cream a second time. When we finish that, okay, when we finish shaving, you'll see that we wash the client's face. And it's nice to get rid of all that bacteria, and it's also nice to use an antibacterial antibacterial soap. It's another Menu product. All these link up. This obviously cleans all the pores, gets rid of the bacteria, and it's going to stop any folliculitis. It's going to stop any spots. It's really, really going to help the client's skin. I wouldn't do a shave without washing a client's face after I finish shaving. When I finish washing, that's my time. I get my cold towel on there, and like I said, you can see that in the demo video. And then, on most clients, I apply a toner. The male grooming industry doesn't like the word toner or toner. So Menu have developed a skin refresh gel, and I gotta be honest with you, it does tighten up the skin heck of a lot. So for the older gent, and if they're going to a special occasion like a wedding or something, then I would really use this product. Word of caution though, it does make the clients a little bit red at times, so I would be using it if they haven't got their special occasion immediately. So if their wedding was in 20 minutes, I maybe skip this stage. If it's in a couple of hours, the toner really does work. Now, when we finish toning, we've got to decide on what type of moisturizer to use. Menu gives us two choices. Now, we have basically what I consider to be a standard product and a mattifying product. So you've got to be thinking about the client. So if this client's got a large face and he's got oily, greasy skin, then you don't want to use a standard moisturizer, because that's going to mean he's going to be even more shinier for his special occasion. So we use a mattifying product. Now, if you don't want to use Menu, like I said, I don't work with these guys. It's a good product. Find your alternatives. What I'm trying to get through to you is you need the stages. You need a pre-shave. You need a shaving cream. You need a facial wash. Ideally, a toner. And then you need the right type of moisturizer for your client. You choose them. It doesn't really matter. You choose them and you apply them properly. Now, there are a couple of other products obviously in the shaving ranges. So there's shaving gel and there's also shaving oils. Mostly I don't use them two very much. I usually use the oil or I use the gel if I need a third pass, which isn't very often, or if I'm trying to work on an area that's particularly difficult. I don't like oils because they don't actually make the hair stand up. So sometimes I'll lay down oil and then I'll lather over the top, particularly when I'm training, because that stops the cream from drying out so quickly. Okay, oils can be fantastic, gels can be fantastic, but on the whole, it's these steps that I've just talked you through that you really want to master in your early days as a shaving barber. A few more things before we move on to consultations on the next video. We've done all the equipment, or we've done most of the equipment. Now there's a couple more things. You're going to need hot towels for a hot towel shave. And that means you really should have a hot towel cabinet. The cabinet is going to hold the temperature between 70 and 80 degrees. So you're not going to have to take a chance with putting boiling water on a towel or putting it in the microwave or using a steamer, which is 100 degrees. That's going to be better for you starting out, and it's going to be better for your client, and it's much more reliable. I know the experienced guys can manage with a boiling kettle, and you guys carry on. But if you're starting out, let's get it right straight away. You'll also notice that I only use ever white towels. And that's because not only do I want to look professional, but I want them to know that I am absolutely clinically clean. All my towels are boil washed after every shave. If you've got colour towels, you're not boil washing them, because otherwise your blacks will be grey and your reds will be pink, okay? I just think it's part of the industry. We should be looking as professional as we can. Now, this is something that the experienced guys may not agree with at all, and that's gloves. I'm not shaving today, I'm just talking to you guys. I'd always have two on when I did a shave. I always train with gloves on, and I won't train anyone without wearing gloves. Now, there's a few reasons for this. The first one is all to do with industry image. Particularly in the UK, I want us to look as professional as we can. I don't want the public to think that we are cowboys in any way. Okay? Wearing gloves, don't have to be black, are part of a professional image. And the more professional we look, the better the image is to the client, and in the long run, the more we can charge because we look more professional. But there's a real practical level too, and that means that you have a legal responsibility. Now, I know there's no law against not wearing gloves. Okay? There's no glove police. Nobody's going to come in, the police won't raid you at 2 o'clock in the morning because you don't wear gloves. Where the law applies is where you haven't taken reasonable steps to stop your staff or your customers catching a disease. Now, I'm not talking about AIDS or HIV. I know the chances are absolutely miniature, tiny for them to catch anything like that. I'm talking about everyday things. Impetigo is huge in the hairdressing and barbering industry. Facial herpes, these kinds of things. So think of it like this. First of all, your customer So if you're a barber, your customer should never go out with anything they didn't come in with. So if you've got impetigo or something on your hands, or maybe something you don't know is on your hands, you shouldn't be passing it to them for them to go home with. It's just not right. You're going to do an awesome service, particularly if I've trained you, okay, you're going to do an awesome service, you have that responsibility. And then as an employer, you have a responsibility to your staff. And that responsibility is your staff should not go home with anything they didn't come in with. Okay, and again, I'm not talking about the loose change in your till, I'm talking about a simple disease, if you like. Okay. If something ever does go wrong in your salon, what you've got to do is you've got to demonstrate something called due diligence. And that means you've got to demonstrate that you took all reasonable steps to prevent something happening. It's the same with colour patch testing for hair. You don't have to do colour patch testing. There's no law and nobody will come in and actually check. Okay, and if they did come and check, they can't do anything about it. When it goes wrong, then you've got to demonstrate you've taken all these steps, that you've got records, that you've got systems, and you've got methods, and you've got a training plan for showing that you've taken reasonable steps. Okay, so I think that you look more professional. I think it demonstrates that you're taking reasonable steps to protect your client, and you're taking reasonable steps to protect your staff, and you're taking reasonable steps to protect yourself. Okay, so please wear gloves. I think it's the way forward for us all. That's the end of the equipment video. Now I know there's lots of other little things like mixing bowls, neck tapes, tissues, plastic capes to go around the neck, all sorts of other little things which you'll see in some of my other videos. If there's something specific you want to talk about, please find me on Facebook, send me a message, I'll get back to you pretty quickly, or find me on YouTube, subscribe, like me, and I'll respond to you with anything you need. Okay, so there's another video coming up, and that's going to be about consultations, and then after the consultations video I'm going to run the full demonstration video, which is very similar to what I do during a training course. If you want to do a training course, I usually do them anywhere in the UK. Please get in touch. You need a plan maybe a couple of months ahead because we are pretty booked, and then I'll get in contact, see if we can help you out.